I believe this
will now be recorded.
There you go. See, it's always, I can only remember if I'm not the one speaking. Thanks for doing that, Marina. Welcome to our third soil moisture product review session for the Midwest. This webinar, we will be talking to CPC and their products for soil moisture. So I'm excited to hear more about what they have going on. Before we get started with that, we will just do a brief round of introductions, just so those from CPC, I believe everyone else knows each other, but just so that they know who is here on the webinar. And if you want to turn on your camera for introductions, feel free to do that. But I will go ahead and start things off and then just call on people after that. So I am Molly Wolozin. I am the coordinator for the Midwest Drought Early Warning System with NIDIS. And Marina, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, everyone. So I'm a NIDIS coordinator as well with the National Coordinated Soil Moisture Monitoring Network.
You were quicker. It caught me drinking my coffee, sorry. All right, so Central Region Operations Center.
Hi, this is Audra Barushi, so Program Manager for Climate Services across Central Region in the Weather Service.
Great, glad to have you here. Chip Zimmer.
This is Chip Zimmer with the Kentucky Division of Water.
Great. Dave DeWitt. Who we know is the director of CPC. I'm glad you could join us. We can't hear you if you're speaking. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself or not, Dave. Oh, no audio. CPC director. Again, thanks for joining us. Dennis.
Dennis Toddy, director of the USDA Midwest Climate Hub in Ames, Iowa.
Great. And I'll go ahead and have CPC introduce themselves now too, quickly. So Hylon. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm Hailan Wang. Pretty happy to see everyone here. I joined CPC about 2 years ago and currently serving as a drought research lead at CPC.
Great, thank you. Ileana?
Hello, my name is Ileana Dobreva and I'm with the Ohio State University.
Great. Justin?
Justin Glisson, State Climatologist of Iowa.
Zach?
Hi, good morning. I'm Zach Leeser, also with Ohio State University.
Great. Lee?
This is Lee from CPC. I'm used to working with Kingsley. Now I'm working with Mutu and Rin and also with Hailan.
Great. Marin?
Hi, I'm Marin Stofflet, the Central Region Regional Hydrologist for the Weather Service.
Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan Shargorodsky, and I'm serving as the Kentucky State Climatologist and Director of the Kentucky Climate Center.
Melissa?
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Widhelm. I am the Associate Director and Regional Climatologist at the Midwestern Regional Climate Center.
Great. Mike Timlin?
Hi, I'm Mike Timlin. I'm a climatologist at the Illinois State Water Survey.
Great. Muthu?
Hi, I'm Muthu Elcholaya, alias Muthu. I work at CPC for a while, and I've been working with the hurricanes and now with the drought. And as you know, after Kingsley left, I do the monthly climate briefing, and I see many of you at my monthly briefing. So thank you.
Great. Ray?
I'm Ray Wolf. I'm the Science and Operations Officer with the National Weather Service in Davenport, Iowa.
Great. Steve?
Yeah, Steve Ewan with the National Weather Service North Central River Forecast Center up in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Great. Viva?
Hi, everyone. This is Viva Jeheza. I'm with the NIDIS program, and I work out of the Earth System Research Laboratories in Boulder, Colorado.
Great. And Yoon?
Hi, this is Yun. I'm working with NOAA Climate Center.
Great. And anyone else that I missed that's on the call? All right, great. Marina, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Molly. All right, well, everyone, so this is our third session of doing a review of soil moisture tools, and today's focus is going to be CPC. I think you all know that there are just a number of CPC soil moisture tools, and we thought just very important for us to go through them systematically. We're going to be looking at or hearing from Yunfan on the leaky bucket and then leaky bucket based outlooks. And then turning to the NLDAS suite, the outlooks, the percentiles, and then hydrology. And then finally ending with a review of some of the upcoming CPC soil moisture tools. So it should be a nice survey of the CPC suite of tools. So starting out with Yunfan, and Yun, I'm going to go ahead and give you presentation. So you should see a pop-up window and
Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Looks great.
Okay, thanks. Today I will give you some more detail about the CPC leaky bucket model and also leaky bucket based outlooks. The bottom line, bottom here, it's not going. Why it's not moving? Oh, okay. The bottom here is a web link, give you a single main entry for the leaky bucket product. Okay, next, I just give you a quick introduction to the leaky bucket model. Leaky bucket basically is built on a very simple hydrological water balance model. Here you can see the equation here. The left side is soil moisture tendency balanced by the income precipitation minus evaporation. Runoff include the surface and the subsurface runoff and also ground water loss. This is due to the gravity impact. Here is a diagram that describes the leaky bucket model. The only need is precipitation temperature input to drive the model. The model itself is a one-layer model. The maximum water holding capacity is 760 millimeter. It's converted to about 1.6 meter depth soil, just one layer. Traditional CPC leaky bucket is built on climate division 344 climate division date. We have originally started from 1931 and later expanded to the 1905. It's about 127 years data. And some leaky bucket related, just show you here. Go back, yeah. For the 344 climate division, you can see over the west, the resolution is relatively low than the east half corners. So this is 102 super climate division. You can see more evenly distributed over the corners, and many CPC related leaky bucket related product is built on this climate division. And we also have graded the data depend on the available forcing date. For the monthly product, it can go back to the 1948 to parent, and the daily global data can go back as early as 1979. And this is from Dr. Lee. Recently, he developed a Python driver, so make leaky bucket more flexible and also user-friendly. So basically, the leaky bucket model used in CPC for quite a long time. So many of you maybe want to ask how good the leaky bucket model. We did some validation against the observation ground truth, also satellite data. But today I focus on another validation against the US drought monitoring. So I just put a mutual validation here. So this is a drought area index, just mimic from the USDM. They also have a famous product. Here is a red, yellow bar. You can see bottom here is a mimic drought. The flippy side, the green bar here is just, you can think it's about the flood index. But today we focus on the drought here. As I mentioned, we want to do the mutual validation. You can see leaky bucket have more than 100 years flood drought index here, and you can see very severe drought over the 13th and also 15th. 1913th, you can see 3 major events over this 10 years. And for the 15, it's clustered in the middle of the 15th. And compared most recently drought, it's not as worse as we have 13 and 50s. And also validation. Here, this one is from US drought monitoring, because US drought monitoring is a start from 2000. So we just take this small 20 plus years, put in the bottom, and you match the US drought monitoring. You can see they have a very good agreement in the tempo mapping. And also just want to mention US drought monitoring is a combination multiple drought indicate, but here the leaky bucket is just totally moist soil moisture based, and also more object because compared with US drought monitoring, this is a tempo mapping, and just show you the spatial mapping here. I just picked some case. You can see spatially, this is a soil moisture based drought indicator, also 5 class as mimic the drought monitoring. And you can see the space mappings are not bad. And also another 3 case, you can see they are matched in space quite nicely. Also outside the US drought monitoring, I just try to show you some historic case here individually. And this is one in the 1930s and the 50s. You can see these 2 years, the drought classed for the 30s, mainly classed in the central and the northern part. And for the 50s, it's more in the south cluster. So the drought distribution is different from year to year. And also, different case, and also flood case. We can show you here different year, and this is a satellite map. You can see the normal year, the Illinois River, Mississippi River, and the Missouri River. And this is 1993. This area is badly flooded, and the river is way expanded compared with the normal year. You can see another case I want to mention here is also 2011, and this year we have a very bad flood in the northern part of the country, and severe drought in the southern part of the country. And this is a dust storm in the 2011, somewhere here. You can see due to the severe drought related. And the next, I just show you quickly show you some leaky bucket application. And this is a US drought monitoring. This is a weekly product. and released once a week. And when we do the drought outlook, we based on the drought monitoring, but you have sometimes you can have 6 to 7 days lag, and the leaky bucket model just have a 1 day lag. So you can use leaky bucket to fill in some gaps between the monitoring and the drought released date. And this map is generated by Rich Tinker, and this can show you logically when the soil moisture discharge and recharge, when and where it is. So it's help us to make the drought outlook. And also the left panel, I think many of you are familiar with this map. This is from US drought monitoring, and this is a 1 week's drought soil moisture change or drought class change, and this is 4 weeks. Right side is a leaky bucket. It's from this is monthly from the last day of before month and to the what of the day. This is a product is a daily, so you can just sometimes can fit some gap between these two. And next, this is leaky bucket based week 1, week 2 outlook based on the GFS best quality GFS forecast. And 1 week, 2 weeks soil moisture anomaly. And more importantly, this is more good for the indicator of drought change. This is a soil moisture change, anomaly change. And this map is just show you at the same time the WPC issued a forecast, 7-day forecast. You can see the precipitation, heavy precipitation predicted in this area, and the soil moisture by a very similar pattern increased the wet trend over here. And also leaky bucket we used to build a statistic forecast tool, and this just to show you Hurricane naturally analog. You can just think this is way, and we use soil moisture similar idea to build the outlook tool, and this is just to show you leaky bucket forecast. This is observation. This is a monthly different leading time, and this is a seasonal forecast. Sometimes forecast skew is not bad. And next, I just want to show you leaky bucket upgrade of the 2020. We add a snow, 1 layer snow on the top of soil. So this model is started from 1979 and globally covered daily product. So you can look at the website and also reference here for more detail. And just to give you a quick look, this is soil snow water equivalent from leaky bucket, and this is from Office Water Trading Center National Snow Analyze. You can see these two matched very well the pattern of the CPC's leaky bucket, and this one is a multi-sensor based product. And but a leaky bucket is global covered, and also we can have a anomaly product and monitor the global snow nicely, and also global anomaly here. So I will click. Leaky bucket is a very simple model, and only need 2 input forcing and can monitor and also simulate global soil moisture and the snow distribution reasonably well. And this is some future work we plan to do. I'm just start here.
Well, thanks, Yoon. That was good. And actually, I'm going to invite you to talk a little bit more about that future work, because that was going to be one of my questions before I open it up. I notice Dennis has got a question, but if you don't mind, just while you're on this slide, tell us a little bit more about the future work.
Okay. First, we try to do more validation and actually Highland and Lee Mutu works with some latest data observation data, and we do multiple model comparison and more detailed for the nationwide of the corners. And also we have more model focus like the GFS, CFS model. Right now we have a machine learning based tools. It can forecast week 1 all the way to the week 6. So this product is quite the data is rare there. We can have this product in a very near future.
Great. Okay. Dennis has got a question. I'll read it to you. How are you getting your inputs for the various components of the equation? For example, where are you getting the ET from?
Oh, ET, that is just need a temperature. We calculated the potential evaporation and also use soil moisture. There is a ratio of there is just use available soil moisture ratio with potential evaporation. You can get calculated the actual evaporation, but this is a model estimate.
Dennis, does that answer your question? He's got a follow on. How does that incorporate plant water use?
This is a very simple model. I don't think there is an open related to the water. It's just use available soil moisture to estimate the evaporation. No water surface related.
So Dennis, if you have follow on, go ahead and put it in the chat. But let me turn now to Molly's question. Has any of the validation on this been done with observations from state mesonettes, for example?
I think the Highland did something. Yeah. Original, we did some comparison with Illinois soil moisture network and also some data from global data banks. Some data of the like Canada and Russian and China. We did some comparison with soil moisture observation and also some comparison with Greece satellite.
Hi, this is Helen.
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, so as you just mentioned, currently CPC Drought folks are currently also working on evaluating leaky bucket together with a few other land surface models using in situ observations. This is sort of just complement what you has just presented, just the mutual validation between the leaky bucket and the US drought monitor. But anyway, with regard to the in situ soil moisture observations, just quick update is that currently we're working on that, but we haven't finalized the results yet. So that's why we're not including these results here. For this ongoing evaluation, we're using the National Soil Moisture Network data, which is great, and thanks to Marina and also Ohio State University folks for providing this data. So currently we're using that data, and that data has a soil moisture measurement up to 50 centimeter. And in combination with USCRN, the reason that we kind of use USCRN, even though National Soil Moisture Network data include the USCRN, because USCRN data has provide the soil measurement up to 100 centimeter. So kind of when we do the evaluation, we're kind of just using these two data in a complementary way. So the preliminary evaluation just showed that the leaky bucket do show some notable mean bias, which is understandable because as you just mentioned, this is a relatively simple one single layer hydrological model, and the model land surface parameters are tuned using the observed runoff data in Oklahoma, and then after that we just constantly apply these Oklahoma-based land surface parameter everywhere. So that will lead to relatively notable mean bias for the regions away from the central US. But for drought, which is anomaly, so it will be more relevant for us to take a look at the variation, for example, to take a look at anomaly correlation, critical success index. But anyway, so based on this preliminary evaluation, we just found that the leaky bucket actually performs reasonably well in simulating the soil moisture variation. And in comparing with some existing NOAA land surface model at NSAP, they have somewhat comparable performance, so which is great. And in terms of the regional variation, we did find that this leaky bucket, and actually consistent with several other land surface models we have been evaluating, tend to have better performance or better agreement with the in-situ observations in the central US. And the agreement in the western US is not that great. So this is something we're currently looking into. So kind of relevant to the Midwest region, we do find the agreement with in-situ observation is in general good. Hope that helps. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. And what is your timing for having some things published, reported on that?
In several months. We're currently working on that. I think we have gotten a majority of the results, but we need to do further investigation. For example, for the National Soil Moisture Network data, it does not do the filtering for the frozen soil. So we need to do further, filtering to remove all these, the soil impacted by the frozen condition, and then redo the evaluation. And also, it is our interest to look into why the agreement or disagreement between the land surface models and the in-situ soil moisture observations vary with region. For example, in Central US, the agreement is better compared to Western US. Is that due to the data in part due to the data we're currently using, or due to the actual physical relationship between the input meteorological forecasting and the soil moisture variation? So that is something we're currently looking into. We're expecting to complete this work in several months.
Okay, great. That's really going to be really valuable. Very much appreciated. Well, any more questions for Ewan on the leaky bucket?
You can send an email to me later also.
Yeah, and I do want to also mention, I forgot to mention it earlier, that we are collecting the references that the different developers have for their work. And so we've got a number for the leaky bucket and the other CPC products, which I'll be making sure we share with you all, so you can look at those references, validation, et cetera. Okay, well, thanks, Yoon. We're gonna, I think, move on now to Mutu. I'm gonna go ahead and make you the presenter. Welcome you to turn on your camera if you'd like, or not.
Okay, so let me okay, let me make it a full presentation.
Yep, looking good.
Okay, here it is. Thank you very much for the opportunity for us at CPC to present what we are doing. And this work, as Highland already mentioned, is going to be on the NLDAS based products that we use at CPC for drought monitoring and to some extent on the prediction. And this particular PPT was put together pretty much with the help of Lee, who worked with Kingsley extensively when she was here. And as some of you may know, these NLDAS models, these North American land data simulation system models, as they are referred to, belong to two different types. So one is so to give a background, and back in those days, when the atmospheric GCM modelers didn't pay too much attention to the land surface physics, the people in the community, land surface community, kept asking them to improve the land surface models, their physics more detail, to the extent that as described here, and obviously that was not done. So these people said, okay, we will go ahead and make our own models, and that's how the leaky bucket model, I remember back in those days, Hugh Van Den Doel, when he started this, a simple-minded guy, with the constructed analogs and the leaky bucket, he works things reasonably more simple. So this was the effort that the people at various research communities and government centers produced very complicated versions of this land surface physics. And this atmospheric community developed these two models on the top, and the hydrologic focused mind, the models. And we are not modelers here at CPC. We just use the products developed by these modelers and the data sets produced by them. And to give a further background on this NLDAS, this project, actually the NLDAS originally started at NASA and Goddard Space Flight Center, the project funded by the MAP program. And then slowly seeing the progress there, some of the people who work at NSEP at EMC, they including Louis Uccellini, many of the people came, and Eugenia Caroline, a lot of people moved from NASA to NSEP here. So based on that, some of the people who moved up from NASA to NSEP started running some of those land surface models, first in a quasi-operational mode, and then started try to run them to research operations at EMC models. And EMC's Yulang Xia started developing this NLDAS2 based drought monitor akin to that. And then soon CPC working with at CPC or working with the people at the EMCs developed her own version of the NLDAS2 monitor, surface hydrology monitor at CPC. And Li Zhu, who's here, and Li, I suggest to you also, if you may be allowed to unmute his mic, he can answer some of the questions if people ask maybe later on or during the talk. So he started working with the Kingsley, and he developed pretty much these most of the products that I am going to show here. And then they added also the integrated surface drought index and many other products that you see at the CPC web portal. So after Kingsley retired, I kind of took over the maintenance of these NLDAS2 based products with the help of Lee. And then, of course, as many of you know, I do the monthly drought briefing, which helps both the monthly drought outlook as well as the seasonal drought outlook, which helps some guidance to the actual authors of the drought outlooks. And then around 2019, EMC in their reorganization process, they said they are not maintaining these NLDAS2 based post-processing things, and we were told that we have to, if we need that, and we are one of the main users of their products for our droughts, and we have to maintain those things ourselves. And that's when we started. The models are still run at NCO, the 4 models that I showed you in the previous slide, but the actual post-processing of all those things, like just the soil moisture percentile and runoff, all those things are being processed at the CPC. And one more thing, if I mention, they had actually plans to move on from NLDAS2 to NLDAS 2.5 and NLDAS 3. And me and Gwen, now she doesn't work at CPC anymore, but we actually had come up with plans to reduce the latency, the NLDAS2 products, which is about 4 days to near real time, but those plans never really materialized. But anyway, see these models, as Yunfan mentioned, the reason these land surface products, the soil moisture and so on, look pretty good because they actually use the observed temperature and precipitation. And then based on the complexity of the model physics, and then it is tuned, all those things are tuned based on observed values. So that's why they are as good as they can be, because soil moisture, unlike the temperature and precipitation variables, which are actually measured, soil moisture is kind of like an estimated quantity, just as how drought is not measured, it's actually an estimated phenomenon. So soil moisture is unlike the temperature, precipitation, many other specific humidity, all the soil, these things are not actually measured, they are derived simulated quantities. So having said that, which slide are we in? Oh, it's not here. So this is an example of the 4 model ensemble based soil moisture during a given drought situation back in 2011, and they are generally very good in, as Yunfan mentioned, soil moisture is a very unique quantity because while precipitation may be the fundamental driver in driving drought, but the soil moisture retains the combined effects of the precipitation over the previous several periods, as well as the impact of the temperature, which is becoming increasingly important because that affects the evaporation. So the soil moisture is a pretty good a single component indicator of the drought. And of course, we do other products as well, but that's why so much importance is paid to the soil moisture. And people asked about the validation, and here are a few of the next few slides. We will show that. Here's on the left is the monthly stream flow, how the soil moisture, ensemble mean soil moisture, is correlated with that to see how they both compare with each of them. And the 4 panels on the top, as I said, these models, depending on their complexity, not any single model is a perfect model, just as not any single GCM is a perfect thing. So nowadays, more and more an ensemble approach is not only used in evaluation determination, but also used in forecasts, as you all well know. So here you can see how the stream flow correlated with the soil moisture from these various models. The ensemble mean soil moisture correlates much better. The higher blue colors are better correlations with the observed stream flow. And as you can see, due to lack of data and generally due to the generally arid nature of the desert south, that's where our poor highland kind of alluded that earlier. No matter which soil moisture product that you look at, that is generally the weaker area. And of course, you all know that there is a general difference in character between the droughts in the west and the east. And on the diagram on the right, the bar diagram is how the various models, how the top 1 meter soil moisture correlation compares with the various scan network data on the different regions, and the ensemble mean, that light blue color, whatever that color is, generally overall comes out to be better than the individual models. So whether it is with the independent USGS stream flow or the US scan network, the 4 models ensemble mean soil moisture estimate overall generally correlates better than with any single model thing, and you can see the variability within the different regions. And now that we have the national water model has come up, and that old NLDAS based models are kind of getting a little bit outdated. We wanted to see how the national water model compares with the soil moisture product. And you can see how these numbers, the HUC regions, HUC stands for the hydrological unit code, the number runs from east to west, and you can see how the various in the various regions the soil moisture from the various NLDAS models compares with the national water model estimates. And of course, there is quite a bit of variation error bar here, but at least it gives an objective measurement of how the products that we are dealing with in this drought. So evaluated against the in-situ soil moisture observation from the USCRN or the SCAN network, the top soil moisture anomaly correlations are slightly much better than the bottom ones, and the slightly lower ACs in coastal HUCs and lower ACs in the desert southwest, as I pointed before. And this is an example of a case study. The top one is the rasterized USDM, USDM is hand-drawn, so we try to digitize that, and that's what is on the top. And what's shown here, maybe let me, okay. So what's shown here is the soil moisture percentile from the NLDAS is shown in the second row for various months during the 2012 drought during March, during July, August, September, and October. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but that's in the middle row. The national water model is in the bottom, and the USDM is on the top. And I always say for people who listen to the drought briefing that that the US drought monitor is an objective quantity. It's a subjective quantity, whereas the other things are, yeah, there may be problems with how the objective measures of the drought are, but at least it's uniform throughout the period. When you change the parameters, we can apply that to the entire period without any bias. But the USDM is, as you all know, there is a lot of complaints against it because, as Dave Miskus, who used to work at CPC, who retired, used to say, given the same input parameters, different USDM authors will come up with different estimates of the drought. And that's more true for the different categories of drought more than the general drought. So let me see, move to the next one. This is another case of the 2011 drought. The US drought monitor is on the top. The NLDASU based evaluation of the same thing is in the bottom, and the national water model analysis. And as I said here, the soil moisture values percentiles from NLDAS or national water model are more objective, and those two tend to agree slightly better than with the USDM, which is a little bit more subjective. And especially the agreement becomes less when you move to areas in this critical southwest desert southwest region. This is another example of the US 2017. I don't know how we can get rid of this. Oh yeah. Okay, this is the 2017 Northern Plains drought. I was there. That was just about the time I was taking over after Kingsley, and was watching the drought monitor, and the people from there, especially those ranchers, kept complaining, oh, we already feel the drought situation here. It hasn't quite reflected in the US drought monitor, and of course the outlooks, we kept saying the drought will go away. It never went away. In fact, it got worse. So that shows the kind of the subjective nature of the drought monitor. But the more the objective NLDAS2 based, or I'm sure the more objective measures kept showing that, because that kept showing the precipitation deficiency building up over the months, especially beginning in April, May. So that's kind of what I mentioned here. Recall the debate that took place. In fact, some of the people, ranchers, they wrote letters to the senators and so on. They kept calling us as to about the drought situation in the Northern Plains. Let me see, move on. Another case of the Southeast drought. I don't want to keep showing you the various examples. So what I say here is the drought itself means different things to different people, and its declarations are somewhat subjective, more especially in various levels of the drought categories. So how do the subjectiveness translate into the various drought categories? To that, we want to do a more a detailed evaluation using this contingency table scores. For the probability of detection is the POD, the false alarm ratio, the critical success index. These are the various measures, and all this is based on only compared against the USDM, which is a limited sample, because we all know that the USDM starts only in 2000. We have only limited years of data, and it issued every week. So those are the total samples against which we compare of the soil moisture products. And here in this slide, we show the probability of reduction is in the top left. The critical success index is is on the top right. The hierarchy score, the traditional hierarchy score, is on the bottom left, and the bias over the corners is on the right. And it can be shown here for the various categories of drought, and the no drought, of course, they all, you can see that they are score higher because when there is no drought. There is no drought, no matter which product that you look at. So this is a comparison between the national water model and the land data simulation. As you see here, the agreement is better when there is the D0 category. The agreement decreases as you move further into that's where the subjectiveness comes. That's where the difficulty in transitioning from one category to the next category, it becomes less and less. So that's kind of what I wanted to point out in this slide. And it's not moving. Okay, this is another evaluation. So this is one measure of the critical success index based on the corners for D0 and above. When the soil moisture percentile is less than 30, you can see how the national water model based soil moisture agrees with the NLDAS based soil moisture ensemble. And that's a pretty close agreement. And again, this is a map similar to what you showed, how over this period, the percentage of US area. So whenever the drought coverage area is high, the correlation is high because a large portion of the US is covered by drought. And of course, this map on the top does not deal with the various categories of drought, but we showed that in the earlier map. So one last thing before we move to the final slide is lately, as many of the NOAA and other institutions are moving into the deep learning based, artificial intelligence based evaluation, because that's the more objective based determination. So we have started working on an experimental product of looking at the US drought monitor. If people are interested, they can go and look at this website that I have given at the bottom. And what we have done here is to make use of all the past data, the soil moisture, the runoff, the evaporation, all those things from the NLDAS models, and come up with an objective evaluation of the drought and compare that with the US drought monitor. And we not only do that for the past, but also we try to use the future precip forecast for the next couple of weeks up to a month from not only the NSEP models that Yunfan showed, but also from the European Center. And we look at how the drought changes over the next few months. They are very much used by the drought forecasters in issuing the monthly and the seasonal drought outlooks. So this is pretty much the current NLDAS2 drought monitor work outflow. So the NLDAS forcing generation comes from these regional CDAS models, and then they are used to run the NLDAS models. Again, this is run at by NCO. We obtain the data and do the post-processing, and then evaluate the soil moisture percentile, the runoff index, and the integrated drought index and pump it out to the CPC's drought web portal. So, but there are some issues. There is, as I said, there is a delay based on the NLDAS-based products. The more recent rain may not have reflected. That's why we wanted to work with EMC to improve that delay, to decrease that delay from 4.5 days to close to half a day, and NLDAS3, but that didn't work out. But luckily, the national water model has come to operations, but unfortunately, it's just one model. And you all know that the hindcast forcing and the real-time hindcast, there are consistency issues. So that's pretty much it. And in terms of future work, Hailan is going to talk about that in greater detail. So with that, I will stop. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Muthu. All right, does anyone have any questions? A lot of stuff covered in that talk. Feel free to speak out or.
Yeah, feel free to send an email. As Yoon said, a lot of details are there. I'm sure if people who are attending the monthly briefing that we regularly present, many of you ask questions right there. So, but if you have further questions, clarifications, please feel free to any one of us, Ilan, myself, or even Lee, will be happy to answer those questions.
I know I had one question, which others on the call may have their own personal sense of, but it's talking to some of the state folks. I know that some folks will feel like the VIC model works better or the ensemble works better. I don't know if you have, you did show that comparison against the scan data.
Yeah.
Overall, that the ensemble seemed to be in that one comparison doing a better job. But I did note that actually in the Midwest, it looked like a couple of the other individual models outscored, again, relative to scan data. So I don't know if you want to reflect on that. If you're thinking about doing, or you guys are in the process of doing more comparisons with a broader data set, et cetera. Might be a slide.
That part I am not quite sure. I think Hailan is more involved with that. Maybe she will cover that in her talk. But for center-based, looking at how the soil moisture and the drought is likely to change based on the European Center Precipitation Forecast, we use the VIC model, I guess, because we think the VIC model has a slightly better edge than the others, but then again, that's my feeling, but maybe others can answer. But Hailan will cover that in terms of more objective comparison. And I have gotten into a new project to also compare the leaky bucket model with the GFS based forecasts and the evaluations. We know that these things are better, but we want to objectively show that these driven with the TNP observed have a better sense of the soil moisture conditions than the general circulation model based things. But we want to quantitatively show that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's important. All right. Any questions?
People are quiet.
People are quiet. I think they're trying to absorb all that they just saw. There's a lot there. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Muthu, again. And
thank you.
Again, move on to our next presentation. So let's see. I need to make myself presenter because I'm actually going to be showing Hailan's presentation. Okay, so I'm going to play this and someone pipe up if it's not coming out clearly. But anyway, now we're going to return to the upcoming tools and products.
Changes to soil moisture tools and products at NOAA CPC. Here I'd like to acknowledge contributions from my colleagues, Li Xu and Muthu Chalia from NOAA CPC, and Mike Blard and Herlin Wei. Here EMC stands for Environmental Modeling Center. At CPC, while we continue maintaining leaky bucket and AL-2, we're also interested in exploring new tools and producing new products to enhance CPC's capability in soil moisture monitoring and prediction. One key feature of CPC soil moisture products is that they're primarily based on land surface models. This is mainly because these soil moisture products are meant to support the production of operational drought products not only in monitoring but also in prediction. Examples of these operational products include the US Drought Monitor and the NOAA CPC operational monthly and seasonal drought outlooks. For these applications, the soil moisture data need to be graded and have continuous coverage in both time and space. For drought monitoring purposes, the soil moisture data also need to be adequately long for capturing long-term drought. In this regard, in situ soil moisture observations and satellite-based observations do not typically meet these needs at CPC because of their limited spatial and temporal coverage. Therefore, we primarily rely on land surface models for soil moisture monitoring and prediction. Given that CPC soil moisture products are model-based, these products can benefit from the improvements in land surface models, their atmospheric forcings, and land data simulation systems. Specifically, we're interested in incorporating advanced land surface models that have improved representations of various land physical processes. The soil moisture monitoring can also benefit from improved land datasets that serve as input for the land surface models. So any improvement in these datasets, such as data quality, spatial and temporal resolution, can be helpful. As for atmospheric forcings for the land surface models, for soil moisture monitoring, we're interested in obtaining observed forcing data of high quality, high resolution, and little latency. The little latency is particularly important for real-time soil moisture monitoring in order to capture the impact of latest synoptic weather events on changes in soil moisture. For drought monitoring, the observed forcing data also need to be long-term and maintain consistent quality throughout the entire data period. This is particularly important for accurately capturing long-term drought. As for soil moisture prediction, we're interested in incorporating any methods that can improve the skill and reliability of forecasts for the meteorological forcings, particularly those of precipitation, because their skills play a critical role in determining the forecast skill for soil moisture, especially during rapid changes in hydroclimate regimes, such as flash flood development. Additionally, CPC soil moisture products can benefit from improved land data simulation systems. This includes improvement in the observations that are simulated, such as in situ and satellite-based observations, together with improvement in data simulation schemes. These improvements in data simulation systems can improve the quality of soil moisture monitoring by providing a more accurate estimate of soil moisture state. They can also contribute to subseasonal prediction by providing more accurate land initializations, so the forecast systems can better leverage soil initial conditions as an important source of subseasonal variability and predictability. CPC product development typically leverages development of the above components through various internal and external collaborations. The ongoing research and development effort at CPC is one such example of external collaboration. Collaborating with NSAP EMC, we're currently working on incorporating the EMC NOAA and the NOAA-MP land surface models into CPC drought studies and product development. Here, NOAA is a land surface model used in the current NSAP operational forecast system, whereas NOAA-MP is relatively new and currently under development. NOAA-MP will be used in the next NSAP operational forecast system, which is planned for public release in a couple of years. Our incorporation of NOAA and NOAA-MP also contribute to the development of United Forecast System, which is a key ongoing effort at NOAA. Currently, we're working on evaluating these two land surface models using in situ soil moisture observations and comparing their performance in drought monitoring with other existing soil moisture products at CPC. Here, we appreciate the National Soil Moisture Network team making the historical in situ soil moisture observations available. These data are valuable for assessing the performance of these land surface models. Here is an example of comparing the EMC NOAA and NOAA-MP with LDAS2 for near real-time soil moisture monitoring. Both the NOAA and NOAA-MP land analysis are produced by driving the land surface models with the LDAS2 atmospheric forcings. So what is shown here is largely a fair apple-to-apple comparison. For the date examined here, which is January 24th, 2022, the models are in general consistent with one another in showing dry conditions in the south central US and spotted wet conditions in the Pacific Northwest and Northern Plains. There are, however, some regional differences across models, which are currently under investigation using in situ observations. We're particularly interested in finding out the performance of NOAA and NOAA-MP relative to the LDAS2 land surface models and how the relative performance may vary with region and season. For soil moisture monitoring, we're currently producing and maintaining near real-time land analysis using NOAA and NOAA-MP. These land analyses are produced by driving the land surface models with LDAS2 forcings, so they're limited to the LDAS2 period only. To produce land analysis with a considerably longer period with little latency, we're considering developing long-term atmospheric forcings that start from the early or middle 20th century. This consists of two parts. Part one is on closing the 4-day latency gap of LDS2. This will be done by integrating observations of shorter latency, reanalysis, and model forecasts. Part two is on extending the forcing back to the early or middle 20th century. Here we may leverage existing forcing data or methodology such as those made available from past studies led by Livna. As for soil moisture prediction, CPC is currently working on preparing the production of subseasonal and seasonal forecasts using NOAA and NOMP. These soil moisture forecasts will be subsequently incorporated in the development of CPC probabilistic drought outlooks. These outlooks include not only monthly and seasonal drought outlooks, but also those for flash drought. A considerable portion of the work will be performed in collaboration with NIDIS in the upcoming years. Finally, we present the upcoming changes of soil moisture tools and products at CPC. We will produce integrated soil moisture monitoring and prediction products based on the EMC NOAA and the NOMP. With regard to soil moisture monitoring, we plan to produce long-term land analysis. Here, the long base period is particularly important for adequately capturing long-term drought events, which are prominent in the Western US. The products will incorporate EMC soil moisture assimilation when available. These data are used not only for land surface monitoring, but also as an observational reference for evaluating soil moisture forecasts we plan to produce. As for soil moisture prediction, we expect to produce both subseasonal and seasonal soil moisture forecasts. The subseasonal forecast will be for lead times of up to 5 weeks, and the seasonal will be for lead times of up to 6 months. These forecasts will be produced by driving the land surface models offline with post-processed dynamical meteorological forecasts. And here the post-processing will be performed using the best performing bias correction and calibration method at CPC. We would welcome any feedback on these research and development activities at CPC. Please feel free to reach out if you have any comments, questions, and suggestions. Thanks for your attention.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Hailan. And Hailan is with us, folks, so available to answer questions. Do we have any questions? Let's see, Dennis. Okay, Hailan, Dennis is asking, how do the forcings incorporate ET? Am I out of order? Yes, no, there we are. How do the forcings incorporate ET? Are they driven by temperature only? If so, that misses other atmospheric drivers and plant growth issues during seasons.
Yeah, this is a great question. And currently, I can let Mutu and Yun add to this, but I do not have a very good answer to this because we're mostly model users, or less so of the model developers. My general understanding is that ET will be an output of the land surface models, and they will be subject to the input meteorological forcing such as temperature, and also depend on the land surface property and the vegetation cover. So I would assume that they're subject to a number of factors. And I think land surface model, they also compute this potential ET, and they would typically use one of the traditional methods to estimate that. And yeah, I think they would use the temperature and a few other terms input, like the shortwave, to derive that. So Mutu and Yun, if you have anything to add, just feel free to jump here.
I can ask go ahead, Lee.
I just say currently in the NOAA and NOMP, the ET is computed by the different part from the bare soil, from the vegetation, and from the canopy, 3 parts. So by model use temperature, relative humidity, and the downward solar radiation and the long wave distribution to estimate the different parts and then to make together to total UF transportation.
Yes, as Lee just mentioned, if we take a look at the output of NOAA and OMP, typically this evapotranspiration would consist of several components related to different processes. Yeah, for example, yeah, Lee just mentioned the canopy, the bare soil, and together with a few others. Yeah, and that's a critical component in this water balance. Yeah, and also it's connected to the energy flux because evapotranspiration, related to the changes in the soil, the soil temperature.
Okay, we have another question here from Zach. Lisa, have you considered using any remote sensing soil moisture products for model validation?
Yeah, that's a great question. Currently, we haven't yet used any remote sensing soil moisture observations, but we'll be interested in incorporating that. For example, when we evaluate the model simulation of the groundwater, the remote sensing based observations such as those produced by NASA can be valuable in that regard. Yeah, definitely we would consider that. At the same time, when we do the comparison, we also need to take into consideration of whether this comparison is a fair apple-to-apple comparison, because when we produce all these model simulations and also the observed data set, there are often some potential caveat there. For example, the remote sensing data, typically the duration is relatively short, and therefore it could be adequate for capturing short-term drought, but not so much for long-term drought. So when we do the comparison, we'll just try to make the comparison as fair as possible. But yes, we will consider integrating the remote sensing data when we evaluate the select component of the model simulation, the water component, for example.
Okay, great. So Hailan, there may be some other questions, but I just want to ask you and actually your colleagues as well. I mean, this is a suite of tools, and I don't know if you have any thoughts of how people can think about using one versus another, or how you all advise or have opinions on that. Any kind of sort of high level perspective on that.
Yes, I think I understand that currently, different research institutes and also the universities research labs and operation center, they maintain the somewhat different monitoring product, and I think they can use complementarily. And also, I think different institutions or different centers, they would have their own motivation and the different needs. For example, at CBC, we're operational center. As I just mentioned, our product development need to be driven by to serve the public in terms of the operational soil moisture monitoring and prediction needs. And for us, even the monitoring is part of it, the soil moisture prediction or drought prediction is even more important. And with regard to the tools we use, we also need to consider, specific what tool we can have access to, because for us, we need to have some tool that we can really, get a hold on to, so we can use that to produce the monitoring and prediction products we need to serve our purpose. And also at CBC, you probably noticed that we have been using this NOAA and OMP because that's kind of connected to part of the CBC mission. Because we're part of the forecast committee, we need to leverage this evolvement or development of operational tools that the NOAA Center have been producing. And at the same time, like United Forecast System, and at the same time, we also participate in the evaluation of their tools. So that our evaluation and results, through feedback to them, can also contribute to their product development. So I think all these products are great, just that different places may have different missions. So they just need to, produce a product that best fit their purposes.
Right.
Go ahead. I just want to, since you asked Marina about some overarching thoughts on this. So as you all know, no, we don't ourselves produce any data sets besides the precipitation temperature and the leaky bucket model based soil moisture. Much of the data set that we use are produced elsewhere, and we don't claim to be GCM experts or the land data. We depend on the products developed by other institutions, and our responsibility is to make forecasts and outlooks. We, for example, the week 3-4 temperature precipitation forecast, there is lately more and more we are beginning to use an ensemble model based, not just ensemble members from one model, because nothing is perfect, but also ensemble model based with the Japanese Meteorological Agency, the European Center, the GFS, the GFS. And so we just to make use of an ensemble approach. So the more models, the merrier. So we were a little disappointed the NLDAS2 did not continue on to NLDAS 2.5 and 3. So these various models are developed, let's say Washington State, NASA, and where. So we just at some point get an operational version of them and try to run them at NCO to get the data in real time, because sometimes there's a delay if some people run outside. So that's kind of what has been successfully happening with NLDAS2, but as I said, there was a delay in real time, getting the data in real time. If there is like a few years ago, 20 inches of rain in North Carolina due to a system that takes care of drought, no matter how long of a drought that we have. And if we didn't have that in real time data, you are not working with real time data to forecast. So we are hoping that yes, we do our own model evaluation, but then of course we depend on other people do their model. But the question about somebody asked, Zach asked, using the remote sensing soil moisture data, that we have not done that, and we will probably consider, as Highland mentioned, down the road, to get access to that data and even include that data as part of our process. But unfortunately, these satellite-based things are very short-term data sets, and they can't be good enough for long-term. Drought is a long-term phenomenon, and we need many years of data. And Brad is here, I'm not sure, but sometimes some of the things that we use, the temperature and precipitation data, for example, the lack of rainfall, we use hundreds of years of data going back a long period of time and temperature. So with that, I will stop.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I know my question was a very broad, vague one, but I just thought give you guys an opportunity to reflect. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Marina.
sorry. This is okay. Yeah, I just also want to just really quick to add that, as Mutu just mentioned that as we see, we're just really mostly model users. We do not typically develop models, and we're mostly data users. Even at CBC, we do spend a little bit of effort involved in the model development. For example, Liquid Bucket is one example. And also we're involved in developing some of the data. But again, as mentioned in the presentation, our product development would involve the collaborations with other places when appropriate, and such collaboration can always be helpful. Just for example, well, our near future plan just to develop this forcing data, just kind of extended back to the early 20th century, and we know that there are already been studies, looking to this, led by Linda, and we know that UCLA hydrological team also has been using largely the same methodology. So just kind of produce the forcing data back to 1915 and also use the same methodology to extend this forcing to the near real time. So this is just one example. So some communications or connections on the subject of similar feed nature can always be helpful. So yeah, I'd like to stop here. Thanks.
Okay, Marina, can I follow up?
Yep.
Okay. Here's the problem we're trying to deal with out here in the region, and why we started these whole conversations was, Muthu talked about this ensemble approach. There's this ensemble of different models that we want to use, and ensemble is fine, but we're trying to figure out in our region what works and what doesn't work. Several of you folks today showed, well, here's how it works nationally. And I know that's your perspective is trying to look at how it deals with drought nationally. We all have to deal with regionally or locally trying to figure out what these soil moisture models and measurements are saying and what the reality is in regard to drought. That's what we're trying to figure out, is how these different models work, what they do best at, what they don't do best at, and trying to figure out some of those details. Because that's where this whole conversation started, is trying to figure out why one model seemed to be showing something worse than others. And there are several comparisons today with major droughts. All soil moisture models should capture major droughts. If they don't capture major droughts, then we shouldn't even be looking at them. It's the more esoteric minor droughts and trying to figure out those of how serious the drought is or how close we are to serious problems that we really need to find out.
Dennis, what the problem that you mentioned about catching the marginal borderline droughts, that problem is universal and applicable to, let's say, El Ninos, La Nina, same thing. Major El Ninos, La Ninas, every model gets it. But it is the borderline El Nino, La Nina, very close to right below the 0.5 degrees C thing. That has some models get it, some models don't. So what you are talking about is a very realistic problem in our field, which is the near to. Do you know, actually there is a paper Hugh Vandendoel many years ago wrote for our US prediction of temperature and precipitation, the seasonal monthly outlooks. It is a near normal prediction. Is the most difficult prediction because just slightly out of it, you can end up in the above or below normal. So extreme events, yeah, I mean, very above normal temperatures, above normal precipitation, yeah, very, very easy. If they don't get it, you are not, better be not in the business. So you are right. I mean, that's where we are all struggling with, and these regional differences. And I'm glad you are doing that, and what works for you will not work for out in the Midwest, may not be a totally different situation out in the Florida or someplace else. So yeah, it's a struggle, and we are hoping that the specialized models will take care of the regional models when we ensemble average them. At least some of the models will get these local details.
Yeah, I also want to briefly add, I think this is a great question. And actually, this is a great question that we're striving to provide a great answer. So this is, something we're currently looking into. And, for us, CPC, with Operating Center, or definitely the product not only meant for national spatial scale, but also for regional scale, including the Midwest. So I just saw that there's some thought on that. The thought is pretty interesting. For these land surface modeling products, they're typically just produced by driving these land surface models with observed meteorological forcings. Actually, for these land surface models, we're already present here, including LDS2, natural water model, and also EMC, NOAA, and OMP. They're all driven by the identical observed meteorological forcing taken from LDS2, and yet these models just provide somewhat different answers. So, it's really interesting to look into how this identical forcing, especially precipitation and temperature, would drive these changes in local soil moisture, and together with the modulations of other hydrological components, such as runoff, evapotranspiration, and how these models would specifically handle these components, and how this, the parameterization of these processes would influence the model simulation of these components in responding to these identical input meteorological forcings. So yeah, this is a great question, something we will keep in mind as we work on this model evaluation and perform some process level investigation.
Yeah, that's a great point. Focusing on the not extreme times, yeah, as a test and doing some validation on those. Okay, we got a question from Ray. Is there a plan to leverage ensemble model output to create probabilistic based products?
So can you clarify a little bit? Is this with regard to monitoring or prediction?
Both.
Yes, with regard to monitoring, definitely. I think as already demonstrated in Mutu's presentation on LDS2, the unique advantage of LDS2 is that it's based on multi-models, even though these models have somewhat varying performance depending on region and season. But when we combine them all together, we tend to see better performance in terms of monitoring. And in terms of prediction, the same applies. For example, there have been past study looking to MME, which consists of 6 models. And typically, when we combine all these models together, the performance will be better than, even the better performing or best performing models in that MME suite. So yes, currently it is, at CBC, it is one key effort to develop this probability drought outlook. As you probably know, our current existing outlook that CPC has been issuing and producing is deterministic. And as users need evolve, we need to include this probability information on that in the product. So that's something we're currently looking into. And in order to provide this probability information, it's critically important for us to use model ensemble, because this model diversity, of course, which would include the differences across models in providing the forecast, together with, for each of the models, different ensemble would also provide, produce this large diversity due to the impact of this chaotic nature of the atmosphere. So yes, this is our plan to leverage this ensemble model output for producing this probabilistic based products, especially for the prediction.
I just want to add, if I may, very quickly to raise question that maybe to tell the obvious that, with CPC, the temperature and precipitation forecasts, be it weekly, monthly, seasonal, they're all probability forecasts. It's only the drought, which is the deterministic forecast, and mainly because drought is a tendency forecast. Unlike the temperature and precipitation forecasts, drought is, in other words, there is a level of drought existing already be in different categories. So we have been asked to develop this, and Highland is actually leading a group how to do a meaningful drought probable. In other words, let's say in the next month, the probability of drought development is 60% or 50% in a given area. So there are some ideas to use it based on the ensemble members, how many ensemble members are indicating in the direction, and there are ideas to even why not translate the probability in precipitation that we already make a forecast and use that probability in, because nothing when it comes to forecast, nothing is for sure, right? I mean, that's why we do a probability. So maybe you absorb that probability into this. So we are struggling with that, and we are working on that. And of course, any good ideas from the field that you guys get, please always send us an email on converting that question that just you asked. So we are thinking on that. There are regular meetings, and only when it becomes a full-fledged product we declare it. Otherwise, means we are struggling. We are working on it. That's kind of what it means.
All right. Any other questions? We're coming down to the bottom of the hour, so I think it's probably everybody's a little worn out with all this intense stuff. All right. Hearing no further questions, want to thank the presenters today, CPC folks, very much for your time and sharing the status of your products and what's coming up. Of course, that's going to be really interesting to see. And just a reminder to everyone, we're going to have our 4th session next month. It should be on your calendars. I'll make sure that is the case. We're going to be looking at Climate Engine, which is not a soil moisture product, but it does carry a number of soil moisture products. And I'm trying to remember, Molly, what the other one we're doing next time is. But anyway, we'll send an email on it, but we've got our 4th review session coming up next month. I hope to see you all there. And yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Marina.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
The recording and